Altus Wealth Solutions in San Luis Obispo, California.
Yep.
So you've described this to me a couple of times before. You're sort of in the middle ground. You're not Northern California. You're not Southern California. You're right in the middle of it.
We're right in the middle, right on the coast. So halfway between LA and San Francisco, that's where you're going to find San Luis Obispo, right on the coast on Highway 1.
I know you do a lot of work with business owner clients and specifically in the retirement planning arena. I'll just kind of tee it up this way. As an advisor, I loved working with business owners. I remember I took the CFP exam. I learned so much about working with business owner clients and just the complexities that they have in their decision making and the different things and tools that they have. I know there's a lot of meat on that bone to chew on, right? When you work with business owners. But tell me a little bit about the work you do specifically in the retirement planning space.
So mostly what I do with clients, my business owner clients, it ranges. Do fractional CFO work, chief financial officer work, as well as I'm really just trying to help the business owner or the entrepreneur understand what they have in their pocket, how that mechanics of the machine that they have, the money running through their fingers, right? Just really understand all of that. So qualified plan space is a small portion of that, but it's a very important part. And it's one of the parts of business ownership that really very few advisors know how to communicate with their business owner clients and provide services to truly understand that plan. Those qualified plans, 401ks, profit sharing plans, are an integral part of how the business owner is working with their employees. It's obviously part of their benefits that employees have access to. But here's the piece that the business owners rarely understand. It's usually the owner. It's not somebody, it's the top dog, the CEO or the business owner who is the plan sponsor. So they're signing off on this ERISA oversight plan. And they don't realize, I don't think quite so much, the fiduciary responsibilities that they have that are associated uh, with that plan sponsor role. They got to make sure that the plan is meeting all the rules of ERISA, as well as making sure that, for example, the investment committee is doing the proper reviews, that they're maintaining a good fee structure, that they're not that the fees are not excessive for the plan. And one of the things we're starting to see more and more of is plans, although it tends to be the larger ones, but plans more and more are starting to be sued and also being overviewed for whether or not the plan sponsor is really fulfilling that fiduciary role to all of their employees or plan participants. So the work that I do with business owners in that one space in qualified plans is really helping them to understand all the financial ins and outs of the plan, their responsibilities as the plan sponsor, and making sure that they're getting good value for the money that they are spending on the plan. Both the fees that they are writing checks for, or essentially the plan is paying money for, as well as the unseen fees that are being accumulated, 12B1 fees, for example, on some of these platforms, hidden fees. Just really want to understand what are the total costs, no matter who's bearing that cost. What are they really? What are you buying for that? And what are you getting?
As an advisor in the work that I did in 401k plans, that's one of the least commonly understood risks in maybe the entire financial services industry is how much liability those plan fiduciaries have. And a lot of times they have no idea.
Yeah, and they often will delegate it, right? So here you are, the plan sponsor, and again, it tends to be the CEO, the owner of the company, the top dog, corner office, president, whatever you want to call that role. And because it's complex and it's financial, they tend to delegate a lot of the work and oversight to, if they have a CFO, that person, or maybe it's just the controller or their primary bookkeeper, right? So they delegate a lot of that. And what they don't understand is that ultimately, if something is being done and not done correctly, the plan sponsor is the one that's actually held responsible for that. So that fiduciary role, it comes with really understanding what the plan is doing, what it's not doing, what it needs to be able to do at a minimum in order to meet the standards of ERISA. And I think that's probably one of the biggest education spaces that I spend my time in. Although we're seeing more and more plan sponsors realize that that's an important part. There was a survey I was just looking at earlier today, and it was the number three and most important aspect of 401k management that plan sponsors wanted to understand, which was their role. I mean, exactly what they are responsible for and the fiduciary piece of that role. So one of the things I spend a lot of time with the plan sponsor is here's what's going on. Here's what your CFO or your controller should understand, but here's what you are responsible for. And here's a way for you to understand how to understand what your CFO or controller, whoever is actually pulling the levers, is doing so that you're sure that they're not doing something that you're not aware of that could come back to bite you, wouldn't necessarily come back to bite them.
The plan costs in ERISA plans, and we're talking about 401k plans. It could be a 403b, it could be 457, but these qualified retirement plans at work
Mhm.
are the cost structure of these is another really misunderstood area. Talk a little bit, if you would, about what costs are associated most commonly with 401k plans.
A lot of it really is understand what the costs are and then what are you getting for those, because I've seen fairly inexpensive plans that don't have a lot of bells and whistles, don't have a lot of services being provided, and they're really inexpensive. And that's great and wonderful. And I've seen plans that are much more expensive, but maybe the advisor is providing education on a regular basis or working with each of the employees who wants assistance in their own personal finances as it relates to the plan. That's fine. Either way, it's fine. Just know what you're paying, what you're buying with that money, and have some means by which to understand what you're getting, uh, not just what you're buying, but are you actually getting it? Some way to benchmark, say, hey, I'm paying X for a service. Are you actually getting that service? And how would you know? So we're working with a lot of the plan sponsors, just really having them understand, okay, well, this is how you know you're getting what you're supposed to, or this is how you know you're not getting what you should be, what you're buying. Um, and a lot of that is really related to benchmarking it to other plans of similar size, maybe even nationwide. And that's one of the services that we provide. We have access to a nationwide database of pretty much every plan that's out there. And so we can actually parse through this is your plan, and these are all the fees that are associated with your plan and the custodian that you're working with for your plan, and everything that we can see in the reports that are being filed. And then here's how that matches up with other businesses that are and plans that are approximately the same size business, and maybe even within the same or a similar region. And and it outlines each of the various costs that are associated with the plan and what those costs should be buying. And the nice thing about most of these plans is the costs that are truly identified, and most of them are, but there are some hidden ones. But the charges that are truly identified, they're kind of out there in the open. You say this is what you're buying. You have to have an investment committee. You can have an investment committee that's provided by the custodian, and those tend to be not a lot, like a few basis points, under 10. Is 3, 4 is not uncommon for an investment committee, and basically they're taking the role as a because they're prepackaging it for a whole bunch of plans, and they're doing the review of all the assets that are on the plan and making sure that those assets and the asset managers in those plans are staying in their boxes, so that they're the mid cap fund that's in the plan is actually staying within the mid cap fund box, and the fees for the mid cap fund are not excessive for mid cap funds that are out there. They're doing all that heavy lifting, and they do it for fairly low cost, which is one reason why I usually recommend to a plan sponsor, go that route. You're not an expert at investment, being on an investment committee. And frankly, I'm not even an expert at being on an investment committee. I would much rather have somebody who is willing for a small fee to take that role. They do it. This is what they do all day long, every day. And they know all the ins and outs. And they have access to the whole universe of potential funds. And they're going to give you, because they're taking that responsibility, that fiduciary responsibility. They're going to give you the best result. And you can delegate that because you're paying a fee for it, and there's an agreement associated with it. So if they're screwing up, you at least have the paper trail that says, hey, they were charging money and they were providing a service and they accepted that responsibility. Those are all good, but again, you want to know what you're paying and what you're getting for each of those various fees. So most of these plans, they're going to have a per person, and that's really just the custodian for paperwork management, keeping track of the records. Um, More employees are going to come with a greater cost because it's just more entries in a computer somewhere that are being tracked. Their name, their addresses, making sure that we have contact with them. If we're mailing something out and it's coming back because the address is wrong, they're doing the work to make sure that gets tracked down and fixed. So there's usually a per person. There's an overall monthly fee that you're paying for the plan and for the custodian. That's just to kind of cover other costs associated with administering the plan and just doing the basic grunt work associated with. Then on top of that, you are going to have the investment management fee or the investment oversight. You're going to have other, depending on how much the plan is doing with regards to dealing with employees who leave, maintaining the account for the employee who's left but hasn't pulled the funds out of the account to go someplace else. Depending on the plan, if it's a profit sharing plan, maybe you want to have some level of new compatibility so that the owners are getting more deferral than the rank and file, which they can do. It's usually based on age and time to retirement and pay, and there are ways to do that. So it can be advantageous to even the plan sponsor. Somebody's got to manage that and the complexities of that, and actually the requirements that you have actuarial review by professionals that says yes, this is compliant with ERISA standards or not. So you're going to pay a fee for that, and again, you're paying a fee to somebody else who is a professional who does that, and they're providing a service. What are the average fees on all these plans? Well, the historical benchmarks are pretty standardized. Then we get into the things that are not so standardized, and there's going to be a lot more variability to that. And that really has a lot to do with the advisor fee. That would be, I'm an advisor to my clients. The plan is being managed by the custodian. It could be a Fidelity, it could be Vestwell, it could be, there are lots of custodians that are out there, right? So um, the custodian takes care of the paperwork. The custodian takes care of making sure that the funds are being taken care of, that they are kept safe, that they're invested according to the summary plan document and according to the investment policy associated with the plan. They do all that, but then I'm the advisor and I'm the connection between the plan sponsor and that custodian. And I'm also the one that's providing the service to the plan sponsor, the plan itself, and the plan participants, making sure that paperwork is done, that people are properly signed up when they are employed, that they are given instructions in how to utilize that plan's portals, and then depending on how much you're paying for that in fees, maybe providing some financial advice to each of the plan participants or the employees so that they can maximize what they're putting in and deferring into their plan, and also encouraging things like, should they be deferring more of their money or less, that kind of thing. So, but that's a highly variable because, as I said, I've seen plans that are really inexpensive and provide bare bones services, but they're really inexpensive, and that's partly because the plan sponsor and the participants really they just don't want to pay for those services. They're not going to use them. And then I've seen really expensive ones that want the services and they're paying for them. And that's perfectly legitimate too. And I have seen, on the flip side of that, I've seen uh, plans that they really wanted services, but they weren't willing to pay for them. Then they're complaining because they're not getting the services. And I've seen plans that charge for services that are not being provided to anybody because nobody's thought about that. And the advisor's making good money for basically doing nothing. And then when we do reviews, we see a lot of plans that are the advisor started, maybe they were providing service the first year, and then it's just, it gets easy not to do much. All the employees are on the plan, and the advisor keeps raking in the same fees, and they do less and less and less work. And that's usually when the plan sponsors say, "Wait a minute." They will go through a review. We're going to look at the costs, and we're going to say, you're paying 25 basis points uh, on every dollar in assets under management. And for an advisor, and how often are you seeing the advisor? Oh, I see him once a year when we re-up on our contract.
Yeah,
Okay, so he's putting in 1 hour and he's being paid thousands of dollars a year. That's a pretty good deal.
pretty good gig. What types of business owners are you working with in terms of the size of the business, the employee headcount, all that type of stuff?
We typically try to fill the space that's not the giant small company. So typically we're filling the space of the uh, on the low end, maybe 10 employees. On the upper end, maybe 50 employees. It's an area that we find is underserved because financial advisors, right? They do it based on basis points, and they're getting paid for that. And it's nice getting this giant plan if you have a big giant firm, and you tend to get better fees on a per person because not everybody uses these plans, or at least not all the participants use it. So our focus is on employees, on businesses that are 10 to 50 employees. Really, asset minimum would be $1 million in assets in the plan. We'll take smaller ones. We'll work them through if are just getting started. I love entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur myself, so I tend to relate really, really well to people who are business owners but are entrepreneurial business owners, that they live and love the fact that they're creating something, not just people who've kind of worked their way up through it. So that's a preference of mine. But honestly, my clients are all over the place. I've had people who were in family businesses and they took over from their parents. I had business owners who started everything from scratch because they just loved what they were doing, and they got a boom business that's it's growing like weeds, and they're just trying to get ahead of the curve and stay ahead of the curve on that. Those are probably the most fun ones for me. Uh, but then I've had everything in between. Solopreneurs that finally realized that that was just, they owned a job and they didn't own a business, and they wanted to convert to something where they have some employees and are growing. That's always a fun transition. And then I've helped business owners who are transitioning out. So either they're transitioning out to a younger family member, or they're transitioning out to a colleague that's in the company, or maybe a younger associate, or essentially apprentice that comes in as now an associate, but is going to take over the management and operation of the company. We do a lot of work in that space as well. So in the qualified plan space, though, yeah, I'd say 10 to 50 employees, uh, a million or more. Those tend to be $1 million to $10 million plans.
Cool, John. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I do want to make sure, just to cover some housekeeping here, to be very crystal clear out there, because the ERISA rules are so dangerous, that this is an educational and informational channel only. So nothing that is said in this video or any of the others that you see on the channel are intended to be financial or investment advice. Frankly, neither John nor I know your personal business's situation, so we
Yeah.
can't give you any investment advice or financial advice. However, if you do have questions and need to talk to a professional advisor, I'm guessing John would be happy to share his contact information with you so that you know how to reach
Good.
him. So, John, how can business owners out there reach out to you if they want to talk to you?
The easiest way would actually just to give us a phone call. So that line and number is 805-476-0333. Our website is Altus Wealth, all one word, Altus. It's a Latin word, by the way. It means view from above. altuswealth.com. And yeah, those are the best two contact points. Feel free to reach out. You can always schedule a free consult. We can talk a little bit more about what it is you're trying to accomplish, and then whether or not there's a review of your plan is appropriate. and we go forward from there. But I'm always happy to chat to somebody, no strings attached, especially if you're a business owner and you've got some kind of project you're working on. I love to hear about it because I live vicariously through all those stories.
Well, and if you're watching the video on YouTube, if you'll click down in the description, I'll provide John's contact information, phone number, links to his website, so you can reach out to John that way. If you're viewing this video on advisoryadvocates.com, there will be links on, if you'll just scroll down a little bit on the video, you'll see a link to reach out to John, so you'll be able to contact him. Thanks again, John, for your time. Appreciate it. I know you got a hard stop here, so we'll let you go, but thanks a lot for your time, man, and I appreciate you sharing your insights today.
It is always my pleasure to chat.
Thank you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right.